Hello, good evening, or probably actually good morning by the time you are getting this. We are Scarlet and Rage Podcast. I am Michael and Jay. How you doing today?
Michael, good, tired, just had a long day back from the great state of Ohio. Colder up there where you guys are at, although you're in Cincinnati, so maybe the
Yeah.
weather's a little better there. Come back home to North Carolina and it's all sunny and stuff. And I'm like, damn, I'm not used to like the sun being out after like 6 o'clock. It was all cloudy up there. But then I guess it was like that in the state today, and I was unlucky while there.
Yeah, today was a little cool, at least down here. It was a little cool, but very sunny today. We had a playoff game with my son, won in thrilling fashion, 13-12 on the last play of the game. So that was good. And the Buckeyes down Penn State. And so 2 for 2 this weekend. I didn't keep up with whether the Titans played or not, but the Bengals did not play. So they couldn't upset me or make me happy one way or the other. And it was a good weekend. I, you sent a picture during the game. You were at the game. You were in the atmosphere. You were in the shoe. Tell me, was this an exciting atmosphere? It's a noon game. Sometimes those are known to be a little bit sleepy. How was it like from start to finish?
Michael, I got to be honest, man. I've had a lot of complaints about Ohio Stadium and stuff, and I actually heard Kirk Herbstreit talking on the Pat McAfee show Friday, and he was absolutely correct. Ohio Stadium's kind of become a stadium that's more reactionary and not like a crowd who's just pumping noise throughout the game, and they're kind of a victim of their own success. And I've kind of like alluded to this. I'm actually not alluded to. I've said it. Like I really do think that the hike in ticket prices and all the success Ohio State has had over the years has really hurt the crowd atmosphere. But I'm this game, Michael, man, they were loud the entire way through. There was a
Oh,
point
okay.
where,
I thought you were about to say that the opposite of that. So it was rocking from start to finish
absolutely,
Saturday. Okay.
absolutely, especially in the second half, it got really loud. There was a moment there I wasn't even cheering, and I was like, "Whoa, this is really loud in here, really, really loud in here." The crowd was great, outside of a couple people. Quick funny story, Michael. Do you want to hear a quick funny story?
Yeah.
Actually, it's more of a pathetic story because this is just society nowadays and some of the soft fans. Well, if you know me well enough, I'm sure anybody who actually knows who I actually am and has any of my social media knows who I probably went to the game with on Saturday. Um, so I was sitting there in the stands, and the person next to me, the person I went with to the game, I'm not going to name them. They didn't want me to like throw out there who I was with and stuff. And uh, this person was making comments throughout the game, and just very highly critical of the game, and just talking about the game, yelling, just being a fan, right? Well, at some point, some woman down
Hold on.
sitting
So
to our
the person that went with you to the game was making comments. Is that
Yeah,
am I
just
following you
making
right? Okay.
comments
All
about
right.
the game, yelling, cussing, being
Mm,
very angry towards like what was going on in the game.
yeah.
And at I think it was actually in the no, this started in the second quarter. This wasn't just a one-time thing. It started in like the second quarter. Some woman to our right just then turned around and started complaining to him, saying like, "Hey, watch your language. There are kids here. My daughter's here. Blah blah blah." And some other dude chimed in that was right in front of us. He was saying the same thing, and this person's like, "Okay, whatever." You know, um, just kind of blew them off. Again, he wasn't really saying anything to them. They just didn't appreciate what he was saying. So then it happened like another time, and then like they said something to him, and then I'm like being my normal Scarlet and Rage self, I get really pissed off about the game. I'm getting angry and I'm cussing like, "What the fuck are you doing, Ryan? This play calling fucking sucks." Like, what? I don't even remember what I was saying. This woman to my right starts saying it to me, and I'm like, it. It was I forget exactly what I said, and I was like, "Lady, what did I ever do to you? Like, why are you
Did
complaining
you get
about
in a
me?"
fight with a woman at the Ohio
No,
State
I
game?
didn't. So no, I
Okay.
didn't. So I didn't get into a fight at all, but well, almost did. So the woman is like complaining to me, and then the person who I went to the game with, they start asking the woman, the like woman, like I don't even know her name. Let's just call her random woman. They're like, why are you even here? Like, this is a football game. Like, you don't have to be here. Like,
Mhm,
what did you expect when you came here?
mhm.
And then like the person who was saying stuff before turns around and he starts yelling. He
Yeah.
starts yelling and like, I don't know, cussing us out or something like, why don't you shut the fuck up and this, that, and the other. And that's what got me mad. And I'm like,
Penn State fan or
motherfucker,
Ohio
you
State
shut the
fan?
fuck up. What?
Penn State fan or Ohio State fan?
No, he was an Ohio State fan.
Mm.
I told him to shut. I was like, motherfucker, you shut the fuck up. You're not going to do a damn thing. And
That
then
sounds that sounds about right. Ohio State fans fighting with each other.
yeah, it does. It
We have a
does
tendency to
because
do
like,
that.
well, you have more experience than me almost on the but yeah, man, this motherfucker was like trying to be tough. I'm like, motherfucker, you're a little pussy. You're not going to do a damn thing. So, I'm not trying to get into like everything that was said, but eventually, like, the usher came down and basically told all of us, like, hey, if the police come, you're all going to get removed or something. So,
So
I will say this, man.
did the calmer heads prevail at that point? Everybody go back to watching the game?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I will say
Okay.
this, like the dude behind me is like, "Oh, make sure you apologize to them," after. I'm like, "I'm not apologizing to them. I didn't start anything with them. Fuck them. They're a bunch of
So
again, this is my soft ass fucking fans. What number 1, why are they at the game if they don't want to hear profanity? And then 2, it's like, like what is that internet meme that came out, Karen or whatever? I don't even really know where it came from. I kind of know what it is, and by that kind of knowing what it is, that's what that woman was to my right. That's exactly what she was.
well, I mean, you kind of know me, like we're kind of opposites on that. Like I just don't really use much language. It's just I just don't. And so, but when I take my kids to a game, I just kind of warn them, or I just kind of prepare them that like they're probably going to hear crazy stuff because every game we've ever went to, we've heard a lot of crazy stuff that's not appropriate, necessarily for
Yeah.
kids. And it's not that that's wonderful and that's great, but I just kind of, let them know, hey, people drink at these games. They're acting, I just let them know that that's the way it's going to be. So I'm not going to, get upset about somebody else if they, if they're saying something that, around my kid. But, everybody feels differently. Glad you guys worked it out and glad the Buckeyes won. So, other than the altercation that almost took place at the game, what was your impression of the team? Like you're seeing there live in the stands. That's a different view than we get to see at home. Is there anything that jumped out at you? Like, does this just give us a kind of a quick what you saw at the game from a fan's point of view? Maybe you had as good a point of view as Michigan's Mr. Stallion when he attends all of the opposing Big Ten teams' games. Maybe you had as good a view as he does. So, what did you see?
Number one thing that stood out to me is how fast Ohio State is, especially on defense. Our defense is actually really fast. Penn State's offense is not very good, but man, oh man, Ohio State's defense really blanketed them. That's the biggest thing that stood out to me from a bird's eye view up there in C-Deck. Um, Running game still has a lot of problems. Um, what else? Like just from a bird's eye view. The receivers are, I'm starting to wonder if they're overrated outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. I know Emeka Ibuka didn't play, but the rest of the core really wasn't producing much outside of him. So lack of like a home run hitter at the receiving core. I've said that on this podcast before. They need more speed and like explosiveness, like quick burst explosiveness out of the receiving core. Carnell Tate needs to play more. I think Brandon Inniss needs to play more. Julian Fleming, I like him a lot. He was really good in the Georgia game last year, but that Julian Fleming just hasn't shown up this year. He had
No.
another drop in this game. Xavier Johnson, again, do I think he's a solid football player? Yeah. Do I think he's a receiver that's better or more talented than Carnell Tate and Brandon Inniss? No, I do not. I think those two guys need to play more. I really do believe in the future for this offense to be great. I would say they need to run a spread 4 wide set of Ennis, Abuka, Tate, and Marvin.
Yeah, on Marvin, one thing that I saw from sitting at home
Mhm.
is Marvin is obviously awesome. But one thing that I noticed, like for the first time, like I could see it very clearly on a few of the plays the other day,
Mhm.
is that as great as Marvin is, he's not an amazing open field guy. Like when he gets in the open field, he doesn't have a lot of moves. He has an amazing span, catching the balls, going up, getting the balls. He has great range. He's down the field. He's a deep threat, 6'4". But get him across the middle and get him like one-on-one with the safety, or he doesn't have those kind of moves or that kind of ability to make guys miss. That's just not his game, and it doesn't have to be his game. You know, that's Ibuka's game. So they've got that compliment there. So, but I guess that was something that I kind of put my finger on for the first time. It made sense to me why, last year his yards after the catch didn't match up with some of his other amazing attributes, because he just doesn't kind of have that escapability in the open field that some maybe smaller receivers have. And I guess, nothing wrong with that. He's 6'4". He doesn't have to, but I did notice that. I don't know if you did.
I've always noticed that. He's
Yeah.
no Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman's a more athletic receiver. The guy from Florida State,
Okay.
who was. I mean, Marvin's putting up better stats than him, but Keon Coleman has a more dynamic skill set,
Was
man.
he
Like
at
that guy
Michigan State?
returns.
Is he the guy that was from was it Michigan State?
Yeah, he was a
Hmm.
traitor to the Big Ten. But I
Hmm.
mean, look at Michigan State, man. I think he made the right choice.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Um, Yeah, Keon Coleman, man, he might be the most talented receiver in the country over Marvin, just because he's the same size. But everything that you just described that Marvin doesn't have, Keon Coleman has. Now, do I think Keon Coleman's as good of a pure receiver? Probably not, but that can
Mhm.
be, developed. Like Marvin Harrison kind of is what he is as an athlete. He's not really going to get much better.
Right.
So, yeah.
The kind of just first remembrance, thinking back as I'm watching the game live, obviously the defense played really, really well. Very encouraging what we're seeing. It's still, I do believe, and we'll get into this more here in a minute. I still don't think that this defense has really, really been stretched. And looking out over the college football landscape, like there's probably only a few teams, maybe 2 to 4 teams that really can stretch this defense, because it's just not. There's not the offensive juggernauts this year that there was at one time. USC is, I don't think they're not going to play them anyway, but they wouldn't be a big threat for this defense, because we see what Notre Dame's D did, and that Ohio State's D is every bit as good as Notre Dame's. But that being said, as good of teams as Notre Dame and Penn State are, very good teams, I don't think what they have on the offensive side of the ball stress this defense a whole lot. And like I said, I think there's only a couple, 2 or 3 teams out there that could. So I'm not concerned. I think the defense is where it needs to be. The offense, maybe that's a different story. I guess, the jury's still out on that too. Like, how good was that Penn State defense? I think it's good. I definitely think it's a good defense, but we made it look like a very, very good defense for most of the game. And so, as we kind of move into the both sides of the ball, let's start with the defense, since it was probably more glowing reviews that we can give the defense over the offense. Do you think, watching that Penn State offense, that I do think this defense is elite? Okay. I think it's elite in the sense of like, it's legitimately a top 5 type of defense. But do you think this defense is the type of defense that can like win a championship like a couple of years ago that Georgia defense was? Even though the Georgia defense got lucky in 2021 because Alabama's best 2 receivers were gone for the championship game. So it got lucky. But, assuming they play in Alabama or a Georgia or a Texas or somebody along those lines, a Florida State, Do you think this is the kind of defense that can win that type of game based on what you saw against Penn State? Or do you think Penn State just is that limited on offense? Because, I mean, man, either we are great, great on defense, or Penn State is just really not very good on offense this year. It's one of the two. What's your take watching it live?
Well, all right. So now that we're going to delve deep into the defense, my thoughts are yes. We won that game because of our defense. Defense, defense, defense. And defense does win championships.
Mhm.
Like you said and alluded, Penn State's offense is not good. But at the same time, the Ohio State defense did what it should against that type of team or offense, which is what Penn State provided. One thing I said before is about the team speed, especially on defense. Nicholas Singleton. Penn State does have a back who could probably start it anywhere in the country. Nick Singleton. He will play in the NFL. You've seen some of his long, explosive runs. I think it was in the first quarter. I mean, I saw it from my view, like up top. He broke off like that 20-yard run, and against a lot of teams, would have been gone. But Ohio State's defense was able to get on him pretty quick. It was pretty amazing to see them run. So a lot of team speed there, just illustrated to me just inside that stadium. I was like, wow, we can run. Drew Alar, average at best. I didn't really say it on this podcast. I've made mention of it on some blogs. I've said that Sean Clifford was a much better college quarterback. And I'm not even talking about Sean Clifford just last year. I'm talking about Sean Clifford probably the last 2 years. I don't really see it with Drew Alar. He's just a big, tall guy with a strong arm. He can't read defenses. He doesn't throw with a lot of accuracy. He's not particularly mobile either. So he has a lot of development left in him. The secondary just lights out, man. You really can't. You run out of superlatives for them. Again, Denzel Burke didn't even play. He's our best corner. He didn't even play. So you had Jordan Hancock, who was rotating between the slot and the outside guy. You had Davison Igbinosun, and then you had Jermaine Matthews. And I was texting you this during the game, remember?
Mhm.
I was like, Jermaine Matthews. I said this in last week's podcast. And I'm like, he is going to be the next one. The next All-American corner for Ohio State. Because I'm not sure Denzel Burke is going to be him if he's missing too much time. Jermaine Matthews is. He is everything you would want in a corner outside of like elite size and length. Because I actually stood next to him when they did the team walk, but like going to the stadium. He's maybe a little bit taller than me. I'm like 5'10". He's probably 5'11".
Okay.
Yeah, but he's just a complete and total package, man. He's like sticky. He's like very sticky, physical. He made a great play on the deep. I think it was like a 3rd and 8. They threw the ball to their best receiver. His name escapes me at this point. And man, that was a clutch play. I mean, that was a deep throw down the sideline. Jermaine Matthews played textbook coverage, getting his head turned around and making a play on the ball. Tuimoloau did his thing. He got a sack, caused some pressures. Jack Sawyer still needs to be on the bench. I do like that they played Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry more. And Cody Simon. He needs to
it seems like Sawyer is definitely losing time. Like it's finally the 5-star status, the Ohio kid. That's finally wearing off for the coaching staffs. Like, yeah, he's just not getting it done as much as these other guys on the field, and it's time to start mixing it up. And so, I guess credit to Larry Johnson or whoever's making that decision for that happening. But I think most people that are watching the games are seeing that same thing, that it's just not anything super special. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying that having those other two guys, Curry and Jackson, on the field bring something that he doesn't seem to bring. And I mean, I haven't like tried to break down and study like really tape and really try to come up with exactly why that is, but just watching a number of plays with him on one side and then watching a number of plays with one of those other two guys on the other side, mostly up to this point, it's been Curry. It just seems that when he's not out there, it brings a different dynamic to the game.
Absolutely. So is that one? So what else stood out to you from like the TV perspective? I haven't watched a replay of the game yet. I saw the highlights. What stood out to you from like on from a TV perspective? Anything?
Well,
Something I
you
might have
can't see the coverages typically that good on TV. So it's difficult to exactly see what's going on downfield. But I mean, what stood out to me was definitely Tuimoloau played very well. It seems like our linebackers played better the other day than they had maybe the previous couple of games. Seems like they at least stepped it up a notch from where they were. Because they'd kind of been the weak point up to the
they
last
have.
little bit.
Yeah.
So it seemed like they did pretty well, but what really stood out is how wildly inaccurate Drew Aller is. It's like there were times that he had some receivers that were open, like they were open, like if you make a good throw, like you don't have to make a perfect throw, you just got to make a good throw. And he made a nowhere close throw. Like he did that like multiple times. And I'm not saying that he had guys open like 10 times or something, but I mean, it certainly was more than 2 or 3 times that he had a guy that did have some possibility of making the catch, and he just threw the ball nowhere close. So I guess that's my only, it's not even a negative. It's just like, I don't know yet at this point how much to attribute, like how locked down this pass defense is versus how unprepared Drew Aller was for this moment. It's like it was just too big for him. It's like you could almost see it at the beginning of the game. And I was thinking like, okay, he's a 5-star. He's got a lot of hype around him. I really hadn't seen him play too much. The couple of times I have seen him play pretty decent. So maybe he'll settle in and get something going. And boy, he just never did. And so, I mean, you definitely have to credit the defense for that. But it certainly looked like from the opening series or two, he was shaky. He was not confident. He was, getting rid of the ball without much rhythm, and it showed.
Yeah, it did, and I don't know if it's really a lack of experience. I mean, this is his second year, so I guess you can contribute it some to that. But if you watch his other games this year too, he's not very good in those games either. Yeah, Ohio State's probably a better defense, and they caused a lot of that. I do believe that, but in his other games this year, he wasn't putting up gaudy stats or anything. And I understand he didn't throw an interception, but he's not really taking a lot of like tough throws either.
Jay? What did I say last week when we were doing the kind of the discussing Penn State? I remember making a statement where I said, Penn State just doesn't have anything on offense that scares me. Yeah, I said, I just am not worried about this offensive attack. Now, I think it was an understatement, because I think that the defense is better than I thought it was. And I think that Penn State's offense is worse than I thought it was. So it's like we really had nothing to worry about with that offense. But yeah, I mean, that kind of rang true. There just wasn't, as the game went on, you could just kind of see that there wasn't a very high probability at all that they were going to cut something loose on a big play. They just didn't have the horses versus a defense of that caliber.
No, they didn't. And it really does irk me. We gave up that final touchdown to them, though. I really did not like that. I was like, damn, man, we were this close to really like blowing them out. If we wouldn't have missed that field goal, it's like we would have made that field goal again. That's a 17-point win all of a sudden. And I picked us to win 28-17 last week. So I was kind of close at the score with Ohio State winning, 20-12. But at the same time, it's like, man, you go back, you look at the stats and stuff. We really should have beat them. Like maybe not blown them out, but damn, very
27-6 would have been like very reachable with the way that game played out. 23-6, 26-6, 27-6, somewhere in there.
Field goals instead of going for it a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
We should have had like another field goal on the board. I would have still kicked that field goal from the 1-yard line. Ohio State,
absolutely. I'm time-stamped on Bucknuts before the play was called, saying kick the field goal, because you got to take the touchdown lead. So with that, let's transition over into the offense. We'll talk about that field goal here in a minute. Yeah. But the offense was not as much. The offense was, thank goodness Marvin Harrison is really good. Like that was the offense.
Yeah, man, dude, that offense yesterday. Oh man, I was like clawing my eyes out watching it. The man, for all the steps forward we took versus Purdue, and I'm like, okay, it looks like we're going to set and throw it up the run. That's what it was like, trending towards. I thought, okay, we found some things out against Purdue. We're going to use that against Penn State. No, we go back to like a horrific Jim Tressel style conservative game plan, Ryan Day in big games, and that was one of the reasons why people got mad at me because I just kept saying like, "This is Ryan Day. This is big game Ryan Day on offense. We're looking at right here."
Mhm.
Let's be real. The offensive play calling for most of the game is just atrocious.
Mhm.
Uh, Big game Ryan Day showed up and called a conservative, terrible game plan. We are lucky that we have better players than Penn State. It's really not close. That's why we won so much.
You know what
We're
the
just
recruiting rankings are, Jay, that were on that field the other day? You've got, not necessarily in this order, but you've got Ohio State 5, 4, 2, 5. That's the 4 classes that are on the field for Ohio State.
right.
The classes that were on the field for Penn State were I'm going from memory here, but this is going to be close.
Mhm.
It's 21, 15, 14, and 9. Those are the 4 classes on the field for Penn State. And it showed just a lot for Penn State to beat a team of Ohio State's caliber, they've got to have some kind of extraordinary coaching, extraordinary game plan, and fantastic execution. And James Franklin's a good coach, but he's just never been any of those things.
Man, I will say this: James Franklin gets unnecessary heat, and I say this in all honesty. I don't think he's really any better or worse than Ryan Day. I think if you give James Franklin Ryan Day's players, he has the same exact success.
It's definitely possible because people don't they don't really account for that considering the level of talent he gets, he doesn't get elite talent.
No, he doesn't.
He
does not.
he gets pretty good talent. And so
Yes.
considering the level of talent he gets, they perform pretty high. They perform exactly where they're supposed to. Now, does James Franklin get them to overperform? No, he really doesn't typically seem to do that, but they perform right where they're supposed to. They're generally not ever under that. They're usually right at that. They're just below Ohio State. They're just below Michigan. That's where they've been. It seems like that's where they still are.
In the talent composite, I think I've looked at it earlier today. Ohio State's third behind Alabama and Georgia, and Penn State's like 12. Actually, let's check it out real quick. Where is Penn State in the talent composite? Because I can
Pull it
find
up
out right now. I'm going to find out right now, and I'll tell everyone where they're at. So
because the talent composite does that figure in transfers and everything in the talent composite?
Everything.
Okay.
So Penn State is 13th, right one spot above Michigan. Penn State has a more talented roster than Michigan, at least by points. Strangely enough, Michigan has a higher average. So I don't know how that works. Penn State has less commits, but with a lower average, but more points. I don't know how that works
So they're
out.
basically neck and neck with Michigan. So you would say that James Franklin is swinging a little bit above his weight with the talent that he has, and Jim Harbaugh is swinging quite a bit above his weight with the talent that he has.
Well, Jim Harbaugh is in the Big Ten. Outside of the Big Ten, he's horrific, or at least against good teams out of conference. He's pretty horrific. Based on the talent composite, we've already played the most talented team we'll play all season, being Notre Dame, and they're 11th in the talent composite. Although their player average is higher than that of Oregon, Oklahoma, USC, LSU, Texas, Clemson. Oh no, Clemson's is higher. So, by average, star average, Notre Dame's in like the top 7.
So with all that talent, clearly there's some things on offense that are keeping that offense from displaying some of that talent that's on there. And I think that certainly play calling was not good yesterday. I don't think that it was fantastic by any means. It was, like you said, it was overly conservative. Also, there was some poor execution. I'm not a Kyle McCord basher. You go on some of the message boards and there's some people that like feel really strongly about Kyle McCord, for a quarterback that hasn't lost a game yet. And I'm not saying that maybe he's going to go to Ann Arbor and I don't know what he's going to do in the future. But so far, he hasn't lost a game yet. So I'm not like a big Kyle McCord basher, but the fact remains he didn't execute at a high level at times. He missed throws, he missed open guys. He was a little wild himself at times. And I kind of thought, that was his supposed to be his strong point coming in, was like he was a really accurate passer. And so far we've seen that like can be an accurate passer sometimes, and sometimes he can be a little bit awry. And he was that, and it's just enough that it has, certainly kept this offense from moving at times. And then you mix in kind of some play calling that's not fantastic. And it, and you get what we've got, struggling to get the ball in the end zone to the field goal, Jay. What I said about the field goal is I said, kick the field goal. You've got to know your team. Your team has struggled all year on 3rd and 4th and short. Kick the field goal, take the 7-point lead, and make Penn State drive it 75 or 80 yards down the field, which they had showed no capability of doing, just to get the tie. Make them do that. Don't give them a chance to kick a big play or break a big play and get down and take the lead. Kick the field goal. And he didn't do it. And because our defense was playing so well, he got away with it. But I don't think it was the right move.
I could not agree more. And along those lines, what you said about Kyle McCord stuff. So since we're going to talk about Kyle McCord some, I will say this. Marvin Harrison had, like I said, a spectacular game, big stat line. He's really living up to bring Braylon Edwards 2.0 because he's going to be a top 5 pick. Braylon Edwards put up gaudy, monstrous stats in college. But Braylon Edwards dropped passes. And yesterday, Marvin dropped like 3 passes. Like, he could have had a bigger stat line, but he dropped like 3 passes. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, he's Braylon Edwards 2.0. He can make some spectacular plays, but he can also like really just lose concentration. I mean, I don't really get it. Some other things that stood out on offense, our running backs are a real weakness. Nobody on the roster has any explosiveness really from the running back position besides Travion, and Travion's becoming Mr. Glass. Like you touch him and he just breaks. Like, I don't know if you can rely on him anymore. I think you're going to have to move with Dallin Hayden now. Dallin Hayden might have to be the guy. He's not explosive, but at least he reads the hole correctly. Mayan Williams is too fat and slow. Why they kept running him outside was driving me up a fucking wall. I don't know what they were doing.
How do you come back for your is he a 5th-year senior this year? Or is he a 4th-year junior?
I believe he is
he's a 4th-year junior because he classification wise he's the same as Henderson. He's a 4th-year junior, so he could be back next year. He'll
be back.
Yeah, he could be back next year. How do you come back as a 4th-year junior overweight? Like, what's going on there? Like, what? I mean, that just.
He's always been that size. I think he's just naturally like thicker. He's always been the same size, and now they're trying to run him outside too much. Why? I don't know. People fell in love with him with that run he had in the Sugar Bowl against Clemson. Remember when he ran over like one of their safeties and and they called him meatball and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, it was a solid run. It wasn't anything great. He's not Trey Sermon out there.
I mean, I liked him in the sense of he would get in the hole and he would put his head down and he would get 3 or 4 yards. And I was tired of seeing, Henderson, kind of fool around and get -1 yards or 1 yard or whatever. So, I mean, I liked him in that sense, but he's definitely a complimentary back. He's a guy that you can stick in there for 6 or 8 body blows a game. And that's about it. I mean, he's not a guy that you can feed 10, 12, 15 times.
Well, there was a point in the game where I believe he got force-fed the ball so much because I think they got mad at DeMonte Trayanum because he missed a block early in the game. And then after that, he was basically benched until I don't know when he came back, late 3rd, 4th quarter or something like that. So that's a possibility there. And it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, you definitely want your running backs to block, but I don't want them in blocking all the time against like pass rushing linebackers like Abdul Carter, who's like a fucking freak of nature. Like, what do you expect them to do? They're not meant to be blockers. They're meant to be able to run the ball, and then probably second, catch the ball out of the backfield. Third, blocking is like the least important skill set. The NFL is not looking at their blocking outside of maybe a hustle factor.
I think that's a function of, you know, where this offensive line is. I think that they know that they have to have somebody back there who can add a little extra protection, because this offensive line is, you know, and pass blocking is probably its strong suit so far this year.
It is. They pass rush Penn State actually very well. Yeah, I mean, Penn State's pass rush is probably the best in the Big Ten, better than Michigan's, and we did fine. I mean, yeah, we did pretty fine against their pass rush, in all honesty.
Now, I did kind of feel, and here's the thing. This is, let's move on. I think all of that has been pretty positive. It was a great win. Happy for the win.
A lot of concerns, though, still.
Good top 10 win. But that's the kind of game that doesn't give me confidence against an elite team with talent composites in the top 5 or 6 and a little more explosiveness on offense. That type of game concerns me, because you could feel, early on, that you could feel that same tightness that Ryan Day likes to get, where he kind of clenches down, he goes into turtle, and he gets really conservative and just tries not to lose. And I was listening to Buckeye Scoop, I think it was yesterday after the game, and they brought up a pretty good point that Kyle is pretty much a one read quarterback at this stage in his development. Like he makes his first read, and then he might move to a second receiver, and like, that's it. And it seems like for the most part, he likes Marvin and he likes Stover. Like, those are his comfort zones. Like, he looks for Marvin and he looks for Stover. And maybe when Emeka gets back, that'll get better. But he doesn't seem to even look for him a whole lot in some of the games previously. So I mean, he does have some development to go, but can you win without stretching him? Can you win by playing it this safe? Like, I know you can beat Penn State. Can you beat Florida State? Can you beat Texas? Can you beat Alabama? Or can you beat Georgia? Playing it real safe like that.
I would not put Florida State in that category. From what I saw of them the other night against Duke, if Duke doesn't, starting quarterback doesn't get hurt again, that's anybody's ball game going deep into the fourth quarter. But once he went out, their backup really sucks. So I would not put Florida State in that group. Yeah, they could beat Florida State, but could they beat Georgia, Alabama, Oregon? No, they couldn't, because those are the 3 best teams I've probably seen this year. No, and Michigan. I'm sorry. How the fuck and Michigan? No, they can't beat any of those 4 teams. I would probably put Ohio State firmly 5th right now between those 4. And yes, I know Alabama has a loss, but they just look a little bit more impressive overall as a team than Ohio State does right now.
I'll say this. I think that, in my opinion, Alabama and Georgia are going to fight it out. I don't want to see a playoff with both of them unless some things happen, because Georgia, I don't care if they play in the SEC, their schedule is garbage. Their schedule is absolute garbage. Ohio State's schedule is significantly harder. No, Ohio State, other than maybe Michigan, they might not play an elite of an elite team. And even Michigan doesn't have that elite of the elite talent. But the fact that they've played 3 very good teams, 3 legitimate top 10 teams, far surpasses what Georgia will have to go through. And so when
question, is Ohio, if the college football playoff rankings came out tomorrow, would Ohio State be number 1 based on their resume?
I mean, I think they should be. And here's the, I don't really care what they are during the first ranking.
I don't either.
If Ohio State runs the table and beats Michigan in Ann Arbor, and they don't go into the college football playoff as the 1 seed, it's a joke. It's a joke because Georgia doesn't deserve the 1 seed. I don't care if they're defending champ. I don't care if they're the 2-time defending champ. They did not earn the 1 seed on the field. And so I don't think they should just get that. I mean, unless they had like a, convincing like 34-14 win over Alabama or something, then you could justify it. But if they beat Alabama 24-20 or something, no, that's the only legitimate team that they will have beat all year. And Tennessee's a decent team. And that's it. There's nothing else. There's nobody else they play.
I agree, but this is not the BCS anymore, Michael. This is the College Football Playoff Committee. They don't really have any algorithms and stuff. They have like metrics that they go off of, but at the same time, it basically like it's a basically, like, yeah, do they take some things into consideration as like other factors? Sure. Other factors being like schedule, were you a conference champion, all of that stuff, but the biggest thing for them is the eye test. I mean, that's the eye test. Like they're like, okay, who do we believe in our mind would win on a neutral field? And they don't always say that, but that's what it is. They're just like me and you. They're looking at the teams on the field. They're like, okay, that looks like the best team. That looks like the third best team, and that's what they're going off of. And I can't say they're wrong. And if we were in the BCS era, Ohio State would be number 1, but the BCS doesn't exist anymore, even though I actually like the BCS, honestly.
If Alabama beats Georgia, Georgia does not deserve to be in the college football playoff. I know you can't do this because college football doesn't work this way, but if you take Ohio State's schedule, you remove Notre Dame and you put Tennessee, you remove Penn State and you put Kentucky or Florida, one of those 2 schools. And that's who Ohio State plays. Let all the other rest of the schedule stay the same because that's about what Georgia's playing. I mean, they're playing not very good teams most weeks. They're not playing Texas A&M, which they're not great, but they're talented. They're not playing Alabama in the regular season. They're not playing LSU. They're not playing Ole Miss. All the best teams. They're not playing Arkansas, which they're not even like fantastic, but all of the better teams in the SEC, they're not playing. And so if you put Tennessee and Florida in place of Notre Dame and Penn State, and then Ohio State goes 11-0 and then gets beat by Michigan, Ohio State doesn't deserve to be in the college football playoff. And if Georgia runs those 12 and gets beat by Alabama, I don't believe they deserve to be in the college football playoff.
I think Georgia
does get a vote, but that's
Georgia does play Ole Miss.
Do they play Ole Miss?
They do play Ole Miss this year. It's at Georgia though, so they're probably not going to lose that game.
Yeah. And Ole Miss has a terrible defense, but they're a decent, and they're a pretty good team,
Yeah, they are a pretty good team. Probably a top 15 team, 20, something like that. Yeah, man. It's just a lot of craziness there. A lot of, I don't know. Just a lot of fan theories, I guess. But yeah, it really just comes down to the eye test and stuff regarding that. I remember you pointed out the kicking a lot, Michael. Just a quick topic real quick. One thing that's become apparent to me is Ohio State doesn't have a field goal kicker this year again. And I don't care if he made all of his other field goals because the first kind of high intense situation kick of the year did really put the game away and make it a 3-score game. He missed it. So,
and it was like square middle of the field, 45 or so yards.
Yeah.
Not a kick that should be difficult. Was it windy? Was there wind blowing?
No, okay. It wasn't, man. And I was like, when he kicked it, I couldn't really tell from where I was at. I mean, I was up high, but it was a weird angle. I thought he might have made it, but he missed it. And I was like, well, shit, son of a bitch. This is another year we don't have a clutch kicker. And I don't care about all the other kicks. I care about the kicks that matter the most.
Special teams still not performing fantastically. I think we can get more out of that spot than what Parker Fleming is producing. We had a special team
coverage is solid. Punt, we still don't have a dynamic return guy. Jaden Ballard's really fast, but he doesn't have the moves, and he's a little too hesitant. Yeah, if he gets like a seam or something, he could go, but he just doesn't run north and south enough for me. So
We had the miscommunication or no communication on the punt where the ball's bouncing around and hits one of our players and Penn State gets the ball. I mean,
no,
that could
that's
have been a
interesting you
game
say
changer.
that. Yeah, that's interesting you say that. We turned the ball over once as well. So we didn't have Abuka, Denzel Burke, Travion Henderson. We even turned the ball over once and Penn State didn't, and we still beat them by 8 points. And probably again, we should have beat them more with all of those factors. Still, we should have beat them by honestly 17 points, which is damn impressive because Penn State is a very good team.
And thankfully, that disaster in the first half was averted because the guy held the wide receiver when Kyle coughed the ball up, but they take it 90 plus yards to the house. That could have really turned the game, because talk about getting tight. Ryan Day might have really started to get tight if we go down 10-3 right there.
He did get tight after that too. They tried to run the ball like way too much, man. Again, back to the offense though. Yeah, I saw the flag on the field. From what I understand on TV, they didn't really show that there was a flag for a while. So I bet people on TV were freaking out or watching through the TV.
I was calm, cool, serenity.
Yeah.
The whole game.
So it's like, again, Ohio State, Kyle McCord. I'm a little bit more sold on Kyle McCord than you are. Is he a one-read quarterback? He might be. But the last couple of quarterbacks of Ohio State have been one-read quarterbacks. Stroud was a one-read quarterback. Justin Fields was as well. They all are, because at Ohio State, like most of the time, your first option is going to be open. So, whether you are or aren't, it's just the fact of the matter is these guys are open. You're throwing them the football. So, like
Stroud just had better accuracy, obviously, and Fields.
Absolutely.
And Fields was able to take it and run. So they each had additional ups. I'm not anti-McCord. I'm just saying, like,
he's doing. He's proven to me. Ohio State really needs to put Ryan Day needs to put the faith into him. Like, I really do believe he can deliver, but you gotta call it to you have trust in him. Like, they should be throwing the ball probably 70% of the time, and it's 50-50 right now. Why?
Do you think McCord senses that? Like, my coach doesn't believe, like, my coach is purposely.
Hell yes,
he has to be. He can't be. He's not dumb. I mean, he's a third year guy.
He's seen CJ Stroud. He saw the Justin Field offense of 2020, not 2019. That was run heavy, but the 2020 offense where they threw more. CJ Stroud's offense. Hell yeah, he saw it. He saw the Dwayne Haskins offense run by Ryan Day. He's not dumb. I think he's an intelligent person.
Yeah, because that's why he came to Ohio State. He said this week was that he visited during the Urban years. Urban had him for a visit.
Mm-hmm.
He saw Haskins. He was like, wow, Ohio State's doing something different with their quarterbacks. Urban leaves. Urban never extended the offer during his time there, but once he steps down and Day takes over, Day offers him. And, that's what had gotten Ohio State on the map for him was what Dwayne Haskins did. So, that's what he's wanting to do. He's not wanting to return to the Tressel era, type of offense where he's not getting to be showcased as a passer. But in fairness to Ryan Day, McCord, there's been times he hasn't exactly seized it. But I do kind of tend to think that you've got to kind of live and die with who you got, and that I don't think this team can just win a playoff run. I don't think this team can run a gauntlet of Michigan. Yeah, Big Ten championship's not that big of a deal, but then whoever. I don't know that they can run that gauntlet just running the football lots.
Hell no, they can't. They don't have the talent at running back to do it. Mayan Williams is not him. DeMonte Trayanum is not him. Dallin Hayden could be him, but we need to see more. Travion Henderson does have the talent. He doesn't have the best vision, and he's unhealthy. I mean, he's never.
You can't depend on him at this point. We don't
can't.
know what's wrong with him again. It's is he going to be back next week? I'm just going to say no. Let's think about somebody else. But I agree. The running backs are not of the level that and then the offensive line is not great in the run block game. So you've got to be able to open up and throw the ball more. And
that needs to be their primary focus, is throwing the ball more. It doesn't make sense. I made a point last week how diminutive and small Penn State's back four was. I could see it on the field. It stood out to me clear as day. Ohio State was so much bigger and longer than Penn State at the skill positions. Like, they really couldn't cut. When Ohio State, the entire game, when Ohio State actually threw to open up the offense, Penn State had a really, really hard time stopping Ohio State. But when Ohio State got conservative and, where Penn State could pin their ears back and attack downhill, then they became easy to defend. Ohio State really was their worst enemy, more so than Penn State's defense on Saturday from an offensive perspective.
So here's the question. I think that they can improve in the sense of like just taking the shot. If you're a heavyweight boxer and your best punch is a right hook, throw the right hook. If that's the best chance you got, make sure you don't leave the ring without, taking a few shots of trying to work that right hook in there. I think the best shot
in a game like this.
I think their best shot is to be able to throw the football. So I think they can clearly Ryan Day is supposed to be, passing is supposed to be his main thing. So I think that they can make that decision. Hey, we're going to live and die by this. We're not going to win a national championship, run the football. I think they can make that decision. Obviously they can make that decision. The question is Day going to make that decision? What do you think?
Man. I hope so. I don't know. I mean, again, he's big game Ryan Day for a reason. He's 2-5 in top 5 games. So let's hope he's learned from his past mistakes, but not everybody learns from their mistakes.
Did this game, Red Bull, did it give you wings for this team? Are you thinking that this team, yes, this team is definitely national championship caliber, or are you still not convinced?
I'm getting closer, but I'm not quite there yet.
Okay.
What about you?
Yeah, no, I'm not there yet. I am getting closer, but let's face it, I wasn't going to be there until Ann Arbor.
Wow.
After that game,
I will say this: you need to enjoy the season a little bit more than you do. I feel like you're always looking ahead to the big games rather than just taking each game, because college football, man, it's the shortest of the major sports, calendar wise. Major League Baseball lasts 5 months. The NFL is half a freaking, I don't know, 7 months, whatever the fuck it is. It goes all the way until February. Starts in August and finishes in February.
It's a lot easier for me to enjoy the NFL like that because it's such a different game. This is okay, Jay, this is a little bit off topic. I'm going to stay here for 30 seconds. I'm going to give you a short snippet of what creates this kind of mindset that I have. During the Tressel years, what did we know we could do? We could win the Big Ten. We could beat almost all of the Big Ten teams, and then we'd lose to the SEC. So I got to the point, I didn't care when we beat the Big Ten teams because we always beat them. It was, can we win these postseason games, even if it's not the national championship game, even if it's the Fiesta Bowl against, whoever. The Rose Bowl was a great win against Oregon, out of conference win. We finally beat a non-Big Ten team again. So that's kind of where I've gotten here in this season of Ohio State football. I know we can beat all of these other teams. I don't know if we can beat Michigan and win playoff games. So until Michigan, I'm not going to say, hey, I definitely think we're going to do it. I am going to wait and see how we show up in Ann Arbor. But before we go to Ann Arbor, we got to go to Madison. And so, as we kind of move towards closing this episode out, what do you think about that matchup real quickly here?
Man, so Tanner Mordecai broke his hand. Wisconsin starting quarterback. Yeah, he broke his hand a couple weeks ago. Did you know that they played another quarterback yesterday?
No.
Actually, no. They played another quarterback starting 2 weeks ago because Tanner Mordecai broke his hand, and now they have a quarterback by the name of Braden Locke, who is okay. He's not quite as good as Tanner Mordecai. They played Illinois yesterday. They came back from like 14 down or something. I think they scored the final 18 points of the game. They were down like 21-7, and they won 25-21. So Braylon Allen is something to worry about, because one thing I didn't point about our run defense, if there's a weakness to it, is runs up the middle, because our linebackers are still kind of a weakness, and Cody Simon needs to start. Their passing game, not very good, but it's not terrible either. It's at home, it's at night. I would say Ohio State I wouldn't say they should be on upset alert, but they have to be cautious here. They have to come ready to play. This team does seem mentally focused and stuff. I don't think they're going to have a lack of focus here. Wisconsin is beat up too, though. I mean, Illinois sucks, and I don't think Wisconsin's any good. I've seen them play. They're slow as hell. Luke Fickell's not. He's an average coach. He's not that great of a coach. I do think Ryan Day's a better coach than Luke Fickell. I really do. And I've had my criticism.
I remember this. This was pointed out to me today. Do you remember Luke Fickell almost beat Georgia at Georgia? You remember that?
I do remember that, but Georgia had like their entire team sitting out.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, hell yeah. It was in like the Sugar Bowl. It wasn't even a college football playoff, and Georgia had like 12 guys sitting out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So again, if that were the regular season, oh yeah, for sure. Or a college football playoff, then hell yeah. Like Georgia has had like every bowl game that they've had where they didn't make the playoffs, they've had like over 10 people sitting out.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on the game, man? I don't know. Do you know anything about Wisconsin? I've watched them some.
I've watched them about one half this year. That's literally it. I've watched them about one half. I think they're obviously an above average team. I think that Madison at night is scarier than Wisconsin itself.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you get that atmosphere, you get things rocking. Maybe you get a few bad breaks early in the game. You can end up in a dogfight, and you never know. I do think that certainly some things would have to happen. I think that we'd have to turn the ball over a time or two. I think we would have to, I don't know, blow a coverage or something, like in a combination of maybe 2 or 3 things happening for us to drop this one. But it's not impossible. I mean, it's not like, oh my goodness, I'm worried about going there. But it's certainly a game that you got to be alert, you got to be aware for, and you got to take care of business. And I think they will.
Yeah, I do too. Do you have a score prediction?
I do.
Okay, what is it?
30-14.
30-14. Okay. I'm going to say 34-10.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And before we go, this is not just an Ohio State football podcast, people. This is an Ohio State athletic podcast. Michael's deferring more to me on basketball, and I'm deferring more to him on the baseball team. And just so everyone knows, Ohio State did have a scrimmage tonight in basketball against Dayton. Close to you, Michael. Did you know that?
I kind of saw something about that. Yeah, that Ohio State was going to be in Dayton, but I didn't pay much attention to it. Yeah, that's not far from me at all.
No. So, anywho, they played Dayton tonight, and they won 78-70. Just to, I didn't really get to see that game. It was on Bally Sports Ohio up in Ohio, and of course, I was not in Ohio in the afternoon, so I couldn't watch it. But I did see the highlights.
I can't get that channel anyway.
Why not?
YouTube TV.
Oh, fuck, man. See, man, everyone always tries to pitch YouTube TV to me, but then you miss out on certain channels. You don't get a lot of channels of YouTube TV, from what I understand. And then you're also behind live TV like a minute or two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I tried to get the Bally's package so that I could get the Reds, and they won't sell me the Bally's package because I'm here in this area.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say this about this year's team. It's Sweet 16 or bust for Chris Holtmann. And to be honest, I mean, since this is Gene Smith's like last year, this won't happen, but he honestly should be fired if he can't make the Sweet 16. This year's team has 6 top 100 composite players on the roster, and this isn't even including former honorable mention Big Ten player Jamison Battle, who transferred from Minnesota. He was like their best player on their team like 2 years ago. A lot more length and playmaking on this season's team. We actually have some height with like 3 players on the roster that are over 6'9", 3 others around 6'8". The player I'm looking closest at is Roddy Gale. He came on in the Big Ten tournament last year. Absolute monster, explosive player, but he's only about 6'3" for a guard. He's the most talented player on the roster. From what I could see from tonight's game against Dayton, a lot more athleticism as a team, length. The shooting is solid, but they're still pretty badly coached. They don't box out. Rebounding is a real problem. Getting lost on defense and closing out on three-point shooters. Typical Holtmann stuff, just not coached very well. He's really starting to remind me of Thad and how terrible Thad was as a coach. Thad Matta had a lot of success at Ohio State, but it wasn't because of his coaching. He just had better players than everyone else. The dude was like the most elite recruiter in Ohio State history, but his coaching was probably the worst.
New athletic director. It's time for some new accountability on the sports not named football.
Yes.
Basketball needs to improve. Baseball needs to improve. Women's volleyball needs to improve. There's a lot of these sports, like we're going to pay for them. We're going to do them. There's no reason why we can't be good at them. Women's volleyball. Why do all these other Big Ten teams kick our butt? I don't care. We're not going to talk about women's volleyball, but that's something for the athletic director to take a look at. And men's basketball is a big one. There's no reason for men's basketball to be what it has been.
Well, men's basketball has been definitely like underachieved big time. Like the expectations should be they should be a top 20 team every year and in the top 4 of the Big Ten every year. They're in the state of Ohio. You can't build a roster for the most part off like Ohio players in football. You can damn near in basketball because you only need like 2 or 3 guys a recruiting class. And you can flip a fucking roster. Like you can't do that in football, but basketball, the rosters are so much smaller. And Ohio is a pretty good basketball playing state.
And the Midwest is a very good basketball region.
Yeah.
So
you have Chicago, you have the Detroit era. You can build like a Final Four team off of just players from there.
Yeah. Barry Sanders' son's playing for Michigan State. I saw.
Their basketball team?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Man, Barry Sanders is like 5'6". How's his son playing basketball?
I don't know how tall his son is. I thought that same thing. I was like, I wonder what his son's built like. Because Barry Sanders was shorter and very stocky. But he's playing for Tom Izzo.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so back to the basketball team. They're definitely a lot more athletic. They don't box out. They don't play very good defense. Typical Holtmann, but they do have a lot more athleticism and playmaking. So, and one of their best, I wouldn't say he's one of their best guards, but he was their highest ranked recruit coming into this year's season. Tayson Chapman from Minneapolis, 6'4" combo guard. He did not play tonight. He's out for the next couple weeks. Hopefully he's back by the Texas A&M game, who's a top 15 team, but I doubt it. Fingers crossed that he is because we need a little bit more length and playmaking at the guard position and explosiveness. Hopefully he can provide that. But outside of that, I don't really have anything else on tonight's episode. Michael, do you?
Nope. Holtman's got to do it this year. I mean, he's got to have a significant upgrade, like anything close to last year, and you got to move on.
I was ready to fire him last year.
He's coaching for his job. He has to be coaching for his job, surely.
Well, maybe, but the problem is Gene Smith isn't leaving until like June of like 2024, so he's not going to fire Holtmann.
No, he's not.
So,
oh boy. Well, no, I don't have anything else either, Jay. Good podcast, I think. Hope you guys thought it was a good podcast.
Like and subscribe to the podcast, people. If you're listening to this now and you haven't liked the video then yet, what are you doing? Like, come on, help us out here. Like the video and then subscribe.
Good win. Looking forward to next week in Madison. Go Bucks.
Go Bucks, everybody.
All right. See you guys next week.